Assalamualaikum dan selamat kembali ke FTV. Kembali ke kita punya live session Sembang Kereta kita episod ke-90 kali ni. Dan hari ni kita nak cerita sikit tentang keadaan jualan di bulan Januari. Sales of ICE versus sales of EV vehicle lah. Dan kita nampak ada satu perubahan besar yang sudah pun berlaku. Dan kemudian kita ada interview dengan Presiden pemilik Kelab Pemilik Kereta Elektrik Malaysia ataupun MyEvoque, Dato' Syarul Halmi. Cuma interview tu sebenarnya saya dah lakukan petang tadi, pasal dia ada kesempatan masa petang tadi je. So kita dah rakamkan dan kemudian malam ni kita akan replay balik video tu. So kita mulakan dengan video pertama kita, iaitu mengenai jualan EV versus ICE pada bulan Januari 2022. Assalamualaikum dan selamat kembali ke FTV. Jadi selepas menyaksikan jualan kenderaan bateri elektrik meletup pada tahun 2021, bulan Januari 2022 menunjukkan bahawa minat dunia terhadap teknologi baru ini sebenarnya semakin melonjak. Jadi kita tengok angka jualan di China, bulan Januari ini selalunya dia ada kejatuhan agak besar daripada bulan Disember kerana dia orang preparation untuk Chinese New Year, cuti panjang semua. Tapi kita tengok jualan pada tahun ini meningkat. Dan selalunya selepas Raya Cina baru angka jualan tu naik balik. Jelas daripada carta yang kita tengok ni bagaimana angka jualan di bulan Januari di China tidak turun seperti biasa. Turun tapi turun sangat sikit. Dan untuk setengah jenama tak turun langsung. Malah ianya ada yang melebihi angka jualan pada bulan Disember tahun 2021.
The power of dreams.
And then it went like, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Selamat kembali. Jadi antara jenama yang menyaksikan peningkatan jualan yang mendadak ialah BYD. BYD ni sebuah syarikat kereta yang menghasilkan kereta biasa, kereta elektrik, dan dia adalah syarikat penghasil bas dan kenderaan komersial elektrik terbesar di dunia. BYD menyaksikan angka jualan kenderaan elektrik dan PHEV ataupun plug-in hybrid kekal pada tahap melebihi 90,000 unit pada bulan Januari. Jika trend ini berterusan, BYD saya rasa akan mencecah jualan 1.5 juta unit kenderaan tenaga baru pada tahun 2022. Jualan bulan Januari untuk kereta tenaga baru ialah 92,926 unit untuk kereta dan 242 unit untuk kenderaan perdagangan. Dalam kiraan kenderaan tenaga baru pula, BYD menjual 46,386 kenderaan bateri elektrik, iaitu satu peningkatan 220% berbanding pada bulan Januari 2021, di mana mereka menjual 14,463 unit. Jualan PHEV ataupun plug-in hybrid pula meningkat sebanyak 760%, babe, iaitu kepada 46,540 unit berbanding dengan 5,408 unit pada bulan Januari 2021. Satu peningkatan yang sangat besar untuk PHEV. Sementara itu, angka jualan kenderaan enjin pembakaran pula ini merosot sebanyak 90% kepada 2,254 unit berbanding dengan 22,223 unit pada bulan Januari 2021. Ini bermakna angka jualan kenderaan tenaga baru, tenaga elektrik, sama ada BEV ataupun PHEV, adalah 97.6% daripada keseluruhan jualan syarikat BYD. Satu peningkatan yang sangat besar dan sudah tentu adalah satu trend yang akan diperhatikan oleh semua syarikat-syarikat kereta. Sementara itu, jenama elektrik lain di China juga mencatatkan angka jualan yang membanggakan, di mana NIO, Xiaopeng dan Li Auto semua telah menjual hampir 2 kali ganda kenderaan elektrik pada bulan Januari 2022 berbanding dengan bulan Januari 2021. Xiaopeng dan Li Auto telah berjaya mengekalkan angka jualan mengatasi 12,000 unit, manakala NIO pula menjual sekitar 9,500 unit kereta elektrik pada bulan Januari. Semua peningkatan ini menjadi lebih agak mengejutkan bila kita pancarkan pada latar belakang di mana penurunan subsidi sebanyak 30% telah berlaku di China. Subsidi untuk kereta elektrik ini semakin berkurangan dan pada tahun 2025 dikatakan akan tidak ada langsung lah. Jadi adakah harga kereta elektrik di China ni sudah jatuh ke tahap mampu milik dan tidak lagi memerlukan subsidi kerajaan untuk menyokong angka jualan? Kalau kita tengok pada angka jualan BYD Dolphin, iaitu sebuah kereta mampu milik yang pertama, yang elektrik lah, yang pertama yang dihasilkan oleh BYD, ia mencatat angka jualan yang lebih tinggi pada bulan Januari berbanding pada bulan Disember 2021. Ini sesuatu yang sangat pelik di pasaran China. Angka jualan Dolphin melonjak berterusan daripada bulan Ogos 2021 bila diperkenalkan dan menunjukkan peningkatan sebanyak 333% untuk 5 bulan pertama ataupun purata 66% peningkatan setiap bulan. Ini satu angka yang kalau kita kata tengok dalam kaji dalam trend, dia dah masuk inflection point lah, dia berganda tiap-tiap bulan, hampir berganda tiap-tiap bulan. Perkara yang sama juga berlaku di Eropah, di mana angka jualan kereta elektrik sudah melonjak ke tahap 19% keseluruhan jualan, dan jenama-jenama utama mencatatkan jualan EV dan PHEV yang memberangsangkan pada tahap 10% keseluruhan jualan mereka ataupun lebih lagi. Kumpulan Volkswagen jauhlah mendahului jenama-jenama lain dengan 24% jualan mereka datang daripada kereta berplug, sama ada bateri elektrik ataupun PHEV. Jenama mewah Mercedes-Benz dan BMW mencatat 10% jualan kereta berplug, dan kami menjangkakan segmen mewah ni akan menyaksikan lonjakan yang paling besar di Eropah pada tahun 2022. Ini kerana pembeli-pembeli dalam segmen ni memang mahukan keselesaan dan mahukan senyap, kerana senyap dan selesa itu adalah tanda kemewahan yang sebenarnya lah. Dan kereta elektrik memang menawarkan ini. Jadi peningkatan permintaan untuk kereta elektrik ini telah menyebabkan sesetengah kereta mempunyai permintaan yang sangat berlebihan. Seperti yang kami laporkan sebelum ini, kumpulan Volkswagen dikatakan telah berhenti mengambil tempahan untuk model ID3 kerana jumlah pesanan sudah jauh melebihi sasaran penghilangan untuk model tersebut. Kita tak pasti sebanyak mana perbezaan antara pesanan dan kapasiti penghilangan, tapi ianya sangat besar lah. Kerana masalah pada Volkswagen ini bukan unik, kerana Ford juga telah melihat jumlah pesanan model elektrik Mustang Mach-E mereka dan pickup F150 Lightning melonjak besar, dan mereka juga telah terpaksa berhenti mengambil tempahan untuk pickup tersebut. Sebabnya ialah kerana sejumlah tempahan yang diterima sudah pun melebihi kapasiti penghilangan untuk 3 tahun akan datang. Dia bercadang nak buat dalam 120,000 kereta pickup truck ni sampai 2024. Sekarang tempahan dah melebihi angka itu, jadi dia dah tak boleh nak ambil tempahan lagi kerana untuk 3 tahun dah sold out. Dan kini Ford juga menghadapi masalah bekalan chip micro, dan dikatakan telah mengumumkan penutupan beberapa kilang utama termasuk kilang di Mexico yang menghasilkan Mustang Mach-E kerana kekurangan bekalan chip micro. Khabar angin industri mengatakan Ford bukan satu-satunya syarikat yang terpaksa menutup kilang atau mengurangkan jumlah penghasilan kereta akibat kekurangan bekalan yang dijangka berterusan sehingga 2023. Malah gergasi kereta elektrik Tesla juga menghadapi kekurangan bekalan, tapi mungkin telah dapat mengatasinya dari segi kekurangan chip micro kerana dia telah berjaya mengubah pembekal. Dan tapi mereka juga telah memberitahu semua pembekal bateri mereka bahawa apa saja yang awak boleh hasilkan semua kita akan beli untuk tahun ini dan juga tahun depan. So ini menunjukkan bahawa permintaan untuk kereta elektrik masih lagi sangat besar dan tiada hadnya buat masa inilah. Untuk itu Tesla sedang membina kilang bateri sendiri di Berlin dan juga di Texas, dan sambil itu dia juga meningkatkan kerjasama dengan kilang dengan pembekal bateri besar mereka di China, iaitu CATL, di mana CATL akan membina kilang bateri berkapasiti 80 gigawatt di sebelah Giga Shanghai. angka jualan kereta elektrik secara global telah meningkat kepada 6.5%. Sebenarnya kalau kita tengok angka tahun lepas, peningkatan tu dianggap mungkin naik ke 4.5 hingga 5%, tapi sudah jelas peningkatan ini telah menjadi lebih daripada sekali ganda daripada jualan tahun 2021, dan dijangka ini akan berterusan. Dan jika trend ini berterusan pada tahun ini, dijangka jualan global untuk kereta elektrik mungkin mencecah 12 juta unit ataupun lebih lagi. Kesemua faktor ini menjadi beban kepada syarikat yang sudah ada model elektrik, sebab bekalan susah nak dapat. Dan sudah tentu untuk syarikat-syarikat yang belum ada kereta elektrik, ini bukan saja beban, ini adalah satu mimpi ngeri, kerana mereka belum memasuki pasaran dan masih lagi merancang dia punya supply chain. Dan kalau kita tengok sekarang, semua yang menghasilkan bateri sudah tentu akan fokus kepada mereka-mereka yang sudah mempunyai tempahan yang confirm. Dan kalau awak baru nak start tahun depan, ini akan menjadi sesuatu yang agak sukar lah kan. Tahun 2022 ni dijangka menjadi tahun penting kepada industri otomotif. Perancangan terakhir mesti dilakukan sekarang pada tahun ini dan mula memasuki pasaran EV secara besar-besaran untuk tahun 2023, dan ini penting untuk memastikan kelangsungan perniagaan mereka. Ini pendapat banyak pakar lah. Ramai yang menjangkakan industri auto akan memasuki tahap perubahan besar ataupun inflection point pada mungkin 2023 atau 2024, tapi ini terbukti meleset bila angka jualan 2021 telah melebihi 2 kali ganda angka jualan 2020. Dan ini adalah pengesahan bahawa kita sudah memasuki fasa perubahan besar industri auto, kerana 12% tu dah melebihi 10% jualan keseluruhan industri auto. Dan kebanyakan pakar bersetuju bahawa apabila sesuatu produk baru tu melebihi 10% pada keseluruhan jualan, ianya telah masuk fasa perubahan besar lah. Dan selepas masuk fasa perubahan besar ni, angka jualan dijangka akan terus berganda setiap tahun sehinggalah ia mencapai tahap 70 hingga 80% jualan keseluruhan industri auto seluruh yang mula mendatang. Gandaan jualan ni dijangka akan terus berlaku sehingga tahun 2030, di mana dijangka ia akan menggantikan jualan ICE hampir sepenuhnya. Ini mengikut unjuran yang paling agresif lah. Kalau unjuran yang kurang agresif mungkin menyatakan tahun 2030 kita akan mencapai 50% angka jualan keseluruhan dengan kereta elektrik, dan mencapai tahap 70 hingga 80% pada tahun 2040. Kita akan terus memerhatikan perkembangan ini dan terus memberi maklumat berterusan mengenai industri auto global dan juga Malaysia. Assalamualaikum. Jadi macam mana, apa pendapat korang tentang video ni, apa yang saya katakan, iaitu angka jualan kereta elektrik dah semakin meningkat, dan siapa-siapa yang masih lagi belum bersedia dengan kenderaan elektrik tentu akan menghadapi masalah besar bermula daripada tahun depan lagi dah. Sebab kita tengok pada awal 2022 pun angka di China dan angka di Eropah menunjukkan peningkatan jualan kereta elektrik ni dalam keadaan yang tak menurun lagi dah. Dia dah macam on a rise lah. It's something yang akan mendatangkan kesan yang mungkin positif kepada setengah syarikat, dan juga ada kesan negatif di mana sekarang terdapat kekangan dari segi bekalan, entah lithium, kobalt, nikel, macam-macam lah yang nampaknya mungkin akan menjadi kekangan kepada penurunan kos dari segi kos bateri lah. Buat sekurangnya untuk setahun 2 tahun mungkin harga bateri itu sukar nak turun sebab mungkin harga komoditi itu kekal naik. Tapi apapun, siapa-siapa yang lambat bertindak, syarikat yang lambat bertindak yang masih lagi belum boleh menghasilkan kereta elektrik pada tahun 2023 dijangka akan menghadapi masalah yang agak besar, kerana kita lihat China sangat agresif dalam ramping up dia orang punya kilang-kilang bateri. Kilang kereta tu kita tak heran sangat pasal China memang ada over capacity yang berlambak-lambak lah dekat China tu untuk kilang kereta. Cuma bekalan bateri sekarang satu dunia berkurangan, tapi China dia orang ramp up pada skala yang jauh lebih besar daripada orang lain lah. Sebagai contohnya, CATL nak buat kilang 80GB untuk Tesla semata-mata dekat gigawatt untuk Tesla semata-mata dekat Giga Shanghai. Dan dia juga merancang kilang 200GB entah kat mana. BYD juga merancang kilang 200GB. Jadi nampaknya macam kalau dekat China dia orang boleh menghasilkan 1 terawatt bateri tahun depan, dia orang boleh menghasilkan 10 juta kereta. Dan kalau pasaran kereta elektrik tahun depan berkisar sekitar 10 juta 12 juta unit, dan kita tahulah siapa yang mempunyai kapasiti untuk memenuhi permintaan tersebut. Dan kalau yang lain lambat tu, selamat sendirilah, fikir sendirilah apa nak buat kan, sebab memang the Chinese are very very aggressive tentang kereta elektrik ni, pasal dia dah nampak ini peluang besar dia sebab dia dah push lama, masa orang lain tengah leka dan tidur, China dah push lama. So sekarang dia memang mempunyai kelebihan. Okey, kalau kita sambungkanlah dengan satu interview kita yang kita lakukan petang tadi dengan Presiden My EV Owners Club, Malaysian EV Owners Club, Datuk Syarul Hamid. Banyak perkara yang kita bincangkan termasuklah soalan-soalan yang kawan-kawan tanya mengenai kenapa di Malaysia ni kita charge ikut masa dan bukan ikut kilowatt. Bila kita pasang kita punya kereta nak charge dekat kedai minyak macam Shell ke Caltex yang sekarang ada menawarkan charging secara komersial. Dan juga kita bercerita tentang realiti hidup sebagai pemilik kereta EV di Malaysia, dan juga beberapa lagi perbincangan mengenai bateri, mengenai berapa banyak charger kita kena ada di Malaysia ni, dan apa yang pihak kerajaan perlu lakukan untuk menjadikan anjakan ni berlaku dengan lebih cepat. Okey, ni dia kita punya interview tadi. Boleh start
Okey.
Okey, teruskan. Okey, seperti yang dijanjikan, hari ini kita ada seorang tetamu. Untuk segmen tetamu yang kita akan cuba perkenalkan sekali seminggu lah sekurang-kurangnya. Dia tetamu kita yang pertama ialah orang yang mungkin paling banyak pengalaman dengan kereta elektrik kot. Dia Presiden Kelab pemilik kereta elektrik Malaysia, Datuk Syarul Hamid. Terima kasih kerana datang, Datuk. Salam. Okay, Datuk, since you are probably orang yang antara yang paling awal memiliki kereta elektrik kat Malaysia ni, maybe you boleh kongsi sikit lah you punya pengalaman sebagai seorang outlier juga kot lah, and pioneer lah.
Saya rasa ada lagi orang yang lebih awal daripada saya yang mempunyai kereta elektrik ni. Sebab dari 2014 saja dah kan import kereta Leaf, kereta Zoe. Lepas tu ada dengar cerita ada people who have imported yang Tesla Model S pun 2014, 2015. So tapi saya rasa saya lah yang setakat ni rasa-rasanya lah tak ada lagi orang yang dispute claim saya yang highest mileage EV driver.
I see.
Semenjak 2017. Sekarang ni kereta saya dah hampir 72,000 kilometer. So dah serata Peninsula Malaysia ni lah yang saya dah drive. Alhamdulillah setakat ni tak sangkut lagi. Knock on wood.
But what car do you drive yang you boleh sampai ke segala pelosok?
Model S. Masa yang ini Tesla Model S, yang ini masa Green Tech buat program import secara leasing daripada 2016-2017 tu. But my Model S is what they call the base model, which is the smallest battery available. The next smallest battery available at the time. So it's not like the 90 kilowatt ataupun 100 kilowatt yang sekarang ni all the Model S pakai lah. Saya punya 75 kilowatt saja. Okay. Tapi range dia masih 350 hingga 400 lah, depending on how you drive.
Okay. So since 2017 ni, kalau you pergi macam keluar daripada KL, sejauh mana you boleh pergi, and macam mana cara tu nak pergi jauh macam tu?
Tapi yes, we have to remember lah, 2017 ni tak ada pun DC charger dekat Malaysia ni, satu biji pun tak ada. Yang I think towards the end of 2017 baru ada yang 50 kilowatt dekat air keruh tu, tapi yang itu pun selalu sangat rosak sampai sekarang. I think tak repair lagi.
Air keruh orang semua assume tak hidup kot, dah lama.
Memang. Tapi ini air keruh restoran Jejambat punya.
Ya.
Air keruh dekat Caltex jalan. Lepas tu sekarang dah ada DC, dah lagi lebih convenient lah. Tapi masa tu 2017 saya ingat lagi masa ada business trip nak pergi Nusa Jaya. Actually I was headed to Pengerang at that time, tapi diorang duduk dekat Jen Hotel dekat Nusa Jaya, tapi diorang ada charger overnight. So calculate boleh sampai daripada rumah sampai Jen Hotel tanpa berhenti, tanpa charging. Itu pun kita tak bawa slow, bawa ikut speed limit lah 210. Itu bila, tapi kadang-kadang especially as you know lah, dekat masa North South Highway ni dekat Melaka yang jadi 2 lane tu, traffic jadi slow. So kalau you bawa 90, 100 ke macam tu, sebab kereta banyak kan, lagilah efficient. So I remember the time tu saya keluar daripada rumah 100% sampai dekat Jan Hotel lebih kurang 20 lebih. Lepas tu balik pun lebih kurang super juga. So tak adalah masalah sangat. Lepas tu pergi Kuantan pun boleh. Tapi yelah, daripada 2017 dengan hari ni, kalau compare lah charging network dekat highway ni, macam malam compare dengan siang, much better today. So that's why I think the message is, kalau nak bagi ke orang-orang yang masih nak masuk EV ni, dah lah kita ada tax free kan 22 dapat 23 ni, it's okay. Not to worry too much about going out station. Mungkin kena ada planning, tapi setakat ni kalau nak ikutkan West Coast Penang sampai JB, no problem.
So di pantai barat ni dekat mana charger? Tadi cakap dekat Air Keroh Caltex lagi, yang ada Shell kan, Shell pun ada pasang kat mana lagi?
Shell pun baru buka. Dia nak buka satu rangkaian 6 high performance charger. High performance charger ni adalah charger yang lebih daripada 250 kW. Dia nak buka 6. Yang pertamanya adalah di Tangkak Lebai, Hara Selatan.
Okay.
Lagi 5 lagi ada, I think I'm not too positive about this. Ada dekat Seremban kiri kanan, south dengan north. Lepas tu dekat Pagoh rasanya, kat Pagoh, kat Aitam dekat Johor. Yang itu pun Hara ke utara. Lepas tu lepas KL dekat Perak, Simpang Pulai dengan Tapah. So that's the 6.
Yang dah existing right now, yang
ada sekarang ada 50 kW. Satu dekat Air Keroh restoran Jejantas Selatan, satu lagi Hala Utara dekat Caltex. Ni semua dekat stesen Caltex lah. Lepas tu ada sebiji lagi dekat Skudai, Hala Selatan. Lepas tu ada 2 lagi dekat Bukit Gantang, Hala Utara dengan Selatan dekat Taiping.
So dia Air Keroh Utara Selatan dengan Utara Selatan lah. That's basically berapa jarak daripada Air Keroh pergi ke Bukit Gantang tu? Dia ada any idea tak? Lepas napas tak?
Tapi kira dekat KL banyak juga DC. So kalau orang jalan dekat KL ada banyak choice lah. Because ada yang perkemar punya ada 5-6 biji. Lepas tu ada free dekat ABB kan 50 kW. So kalau nak ikutkan, kita ikut distance dia daripada KL to Air Keroh lebih kurang 160 km. Lepas tu daripada Air Keroh sampai ke JB, di mana ada lagi DC yang baru buka, lebih kurang 150-160 juga. Lepas tu KL ke Bukit Gantang tu lebih kurang 200 lebih sikit. Because Ipoh is already 100, almost 200 kan Ipoh daripada KL. So dia lebih kurang 50 km lebih daripada situ. Sebab itu sekarang ni gap dia daripada KL to Taiping ni tak ada lagi. Yang harap-harapnya yang dekat Simpang Pulai dengan Tapah tu lah akan dilancarkan. I think dia orang punya target quarter ni so dia orang lebih kurang sebulan setengah je lagi dia punya deadline.
Right. Sungai Buloh tak ada dia Utara Selatan patut kat Sungai Buloh ada untuk orang yang nak bypass KL town kan dia.
That's actually quite true, because kalau orang nak bypass KL dekat NKVE tu memang sesuai sangatlah. Sungai Buloh setakat ni tak ada dengar cerita, tak ada lagi orang yang nak invest dekat situ. Tapi adalah kita orang fikir pun kalau buat dekat NKVE nak bypass KL ni, mungkin cari tempat yang ada tanah besar, boleh buat yang macam forecourt style, yang kita separate daripada petrol station tu, kita buat banyak-banyak. Tapi itulah memang memakan kos yang tinggi. Mungkinlah nanti kan TNB ada buat announcement, Petronas pun ada buat announcement, mungkinlah nanti in the future. Sebab sekarang pun to be fair to them, kita baru kan announcement daripada MAA tu ada lebih kurang 300 EV yang dijual oleh ahli-ahli MAA. Lepas tu dicampur dengan yang dijual oleh pekemar pun lebih kurang 100 lebih je. So still less than 500 EVs in Malaysia. Hopefully by this year boleh berganda jadi 2 kali ganda ke 3 kali ganda. Okay lah, insyaAllah nanti then it's worth it for those guys to start investing. Tapi yang satu kita kena caution dia orang lah, ambil masa nak buat benda ni. So at least sekarang start lah planning, walaupun kalau tak nak pelabur sekarang.
Right. Apa you rasa prospek untuk kita capai 3 kali ganda jumlah EV kat Malaysia tahun ini? Sebab nak tanya bekalan pun susah kan?
Exactly. Sebab itulah saya rasa kalau dari sudut pengguna punya demand, berdasarkan feedback yang kita dapat daripada social media dan kawan-kawan yang kita borak, memang orang very eager. Because sekarang pun harga terendah EV baru semalam kan keluar, yang ada Nissan Leaf dikurangkan harga 145,000. Lepas tu naik lagi, lepas ada people consider macam BMW yang baru dilancarkan iX3 ni semua memang very good value. So demand daripada customer tu memang ada, booking tu semua dah ada. Lepas tu ada jenama-jenama lain pun ada nak dilancarkan. Demand, interest on that one is also good. Tapi as you said, Syamsul said, supply. So allocation daripada factory tu kita tak tahu sangat lagi sebab kita Malaysia ni market kita kecil. Jadi the factory tends to favor market yang lebih besar. So kalau dia pun supply constraint, dia satu bulan ke satu quarter dia boleh produce let's say lah 5,000 unit. Dia tengok UK nak, Australia nak, and this is right hand drive model kan, Hong Kong nak, Singapore nak, tapi dia pun bagi Malaysia adalah 50 ke dapat, 100 ke dapat, if we are lucky, but demand can
50 50 100 pun macam banyak je tu kan. Saya sama ada dapat single digit je.
Sebab itulah demand ada, sebab kita punya market satu kecil. Tapi I think one of the problems was actually even though Mari Datuk Madani ada bagi signal kita akan galakkan EV daripada awal tahun 2021 lagi, saya daripada bulan Mac lagi dia dah ada make public announcement, bagi signal to the market saying that okay, we will focus on EV, we will give incentive. Tapi sebab timeline tu tak clear, ramai OEM ataupun pengimport pun dia takut nak commit.
I think people cannot plan on vague suggestions like that kot kan.
Yes, correct. Lepas tu pun kita pun Malaysia unfortunately kita ada history yang bila kita kata satu tapi ada benda tu very lambat ataupun tak jadi langsung. Jadi if I was the advisor to the investing also or Mak Saleh ni semua, I pun cakap wait and see dululah. Why do you want to put so much money in so soon? Because the risk is generally hard to manage dekat Malaysia.
That's right. So, as the president of my EV Owners Club ni, you ada tak breakdown tentang apa kereta model apa yang ada among your members?
Kita ada masa member register kita minta dia enter, tapi benda tu mungkin tak kemas kini lah, because ada yang masuk 2019, 2020 dia bawa PHEV ataupun dia bawa ICE tapi dia sekarang dah bawa EV. Tapi kalau nak ikut anggaran kita, lebih kurang sekarang ada lebih kurang 220-ish members. I think lebih kurang 1/3 bawa full EV. Dalam 1/3 EV tu ada yang bawa daripada kita start daripada atas lah. Ada yang bawa Tesla, ada yang bawa Taycan, Zoe pun ada, BMW iX memang ada. BMW i3. iX belum keluar lagi. Tapi yang kebanyakannya adalah Zoe dengan Leaf setakat ni. Mini pun ada. So we are well represented. All the EVs that are on the road in Malaysia, all the jenama semua ada dalam club kita. So kita tahulah perangai EV ni semua.
So among the members tu yang ada BEV and PHEV, ada like any kind of insights on which cars are the most suitable to the Malaysian climate, the driving? Ada tak macam
kita memang kita ada notice lah. Unfortunately Nissan Leaf ni daripada generation 1 sampai yang the current generation sampai kat Malaysia ni, because dia punya battery lack active cooling, so ianya lebih sesuai digunakan dalam town, di mana dia tak banyak fast charging, tak banyak high speed. So dalam town memang okey, tak ada masalah. Tapi kalau you bawa highway, for example kalau bawa highway daripada Malaysia pergi JB, walaupun ada fast charger dekat Aircrow tu, you pergi dekat JB, you have to charge dekat Aircrow. Bila charge dekat Aircrow tu masih okay charging speed je, tapi by the time sampai Skudai, di mana you kena charge lagi sekali kalau nak merayau dekat JB ataupun area-area Nusa Jaya semua tu kan, yang itu charging speed dia will drop because the car is trying to take care of the battery, tak boleh panas sangat. So like it or not, you kena tunggulah charging speed itu. So Leaf ni mungkin kurang sesuai untuk bawa perjalanan jauh, tapi I have to say dalam town memang it's a very very good car, because range dia 200 lebih kurang 200 lebih sikit. You charge maybe 2-3 kali seminggu, boleh jalan hari-hari buat pergi pasar, buat pergi office semua tu. So that's one caution. The rest actually macam Zoe, Tesla, Taycan, Mini, semua ni setakat ni all the members are very happy. Tak ada masalah. Macam orang cakap kan, oh Malaysia very hot,
Ya,
bateri
ya.
tak tahan, semua tu.
Ya.
Setakat ni tak ada komplain lagi. Sebab the battery system or the battery management system, the cooling system of the car memang design for the wide range of temperatures. Bayangkanlah dia dekat United Arab Emirates pun boleh guna EV ni, dan
Ya.
so far okay je. Even in the US pun banyak apa EV, and then the southern part, New Mexico, Arizona, California, they get hotter than we do.
Ya.
So benda ni memang manufacturers dah design, dah spec properly, especially the cooling system. If everything is in order, I think that's the most important point. Kalau the cooling system, everything is in order, nothing should be happening, nothing bad should be happening to the battery.
Sedih lah on that Leaf tu kan, Nissan Leaf tu sikit sedih lah. Sebab saya pengalaman sendiri dengan Nissan Leaf tu ialah bila kita pergi ke air keruh and balik, dia tak payah charge lah, boleh pergi dan balik KL lah. And pagi kita pergi charge dekat Nichihon, balik pun charge dekat Nichihon. They overheat on the second charge.
Correct. Yeah, dia apa, sampai dah biasa sangat, people on the internet call it rapid gate.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping that Nissan will come up with a retrofit lah, you know, a battery for the older Leaf, so at least you're right, it's a nice car, it's a decent size, you know, good price.
Tapi ada dua jawapan lah. I think there are two answers to that. Okay, one is actually Nissan themselves, they are coming up with the Ariya, the next generation, which is more of an SUV form factor. That one ada active cooling. Ada lah a few portals yang baru report dekat Malaysia ni, apa kabarnya ada bayang-bayangan lah Nissan Malaysia akan bawa masuk benda tu. Tapi the other one is more interesting actually. Ada, I think UK ke somewhere in Europe, ada orang ni, dia modify the cooling, dia modify, dia buat satu extra coil daripada aircon tu, dia masuk dalam atas battery pack tu untuk do some sort of active cooling, and it seems to be working. Yang ini kalau I think if you search YouTube, memang ada reference there. I'm not sure whether he actually put the instructions out kalau kita nak buat dekat sini ke tidak. Tapi rasanya benda tu tak complicated sangat, sebab ianya sekadar buat macam T-junction untuk, for example, the cooling loop of the aircon. Mungkin kuatkan lagi kompresor aircon tu ke macam mana, cost pun mungkin tak tinggi. So mungkin ini adalah satu yang boleh kita punya DIY orang, sebab Leaf yang lama-lama ni semua mungkin harga second hand ni murah sikit. So mungkin satu interesting lah kalau ada yang pandai bertukang aircon ni, boleh main-main.
Cuma harap bateri tu okey lagi lah, because I pernah masa pergi charging dekat ABB kat Subang tu, Nissan punya promotional car dia, Nissan Leaf yang first generation dia buat masuk tu, they had handed it over to some guy lah who's doing some kind of, I don't know what he was doing with the car lah, but basically dia kata Nissan bagi dekat dia lah, and he lives in Subang Jaya. So I tanya dia, so what is the range like on this car right now? Dia gelak kita 50 km macam tu je tinggal lah. It's all completely ruined lah the battery kan.
The first generation memang dah lah battery tu kecil, lepas tu dia tak ada active cooling. Memang hancur lah. Ya.
So so now the two main factor lah yang menyebabkan orang nak beli atau tak nak beli ialah, yang pertama harga kereta tu, dan yang kedua is infrastructure. And so what are your thoughts on the current state of infrastructure in Malaysia ni macam mana, and how do you think we can move forward? Sebab you pun cakap tadi nak suruh orang invest pun susah juga kan.
Betul,
chicken and egg kan.
Sebab itulah daripada permulaan lagi kita ada galakkan yang siapa-siapa yang jual kereta EV ni, they also have to invest. Sebab kita dah cakap dengan dia multiple times, dengan Perkema, dengan BMW, dengan Porsche, cakap, look, in order for your customers to feel comfortable buying the EV, they need to see the chargers being implemented, they need to see the chargers at your dealers, and they are doing this right now. Perkema kan ada komitmen untuk roll out 1000 DC charger dekat dealer dia dan di highway. Lepas tu BMW pun baru ni ada dah buat komitmen, and we have seen actually baru ni ada kawan-kawan My Ibok ada pergi testing dekat Ingress Auto, dekat LTP, dekat Mutiara Damansara tu, dekat arah Damansara, dekat Auto Bavaria dekat sana. Lepas tu ada hero seorang ni, dia bawa Mini dekat Seremban pun dah ada 1 digit. Dekat Kuantan pun dekat BMW I think Millennium Web ke apa dekat sana dah ada, tapi tak ada member testing lagi dekat sana. So they are doing this already. So setakat apa kita orang punya pandangan, we are optimistic benda ni tengah berkembang. However dia pun ambil masa. So ideally of course benda perkembangan DC charging ni mestilah in tandem dengan perkembangan EV growth ni. So bila the first deliveries hopefully dekat yang BMW launch iX3 dengan maybe i4, first delivery hopefully this quarter ataupun next quarter, bila owner baru dapat kereta tu, they will be able to travel at least the west coast side dengan trouble free. So daripada segi tu I think okay. Tapi dengar-dengar khabar apa setakat ni kalau nak pasang charger dekat highway, there are a few constraints. Number one is of course apa space. Bila kita tengoklah sekarang dekat R&R dekat Lebai tu pun baru ni masa perayaan, musim perayaan tengok penuh sampai tepi-tepi highway tu orang parking. So memang space is a premium dah lah. Kalau tu when we go over there, like it or not, bila kita charging kereta lebih lama, mengambil masa lebih lama daripada isi minyak. So the car will be parked there for a little bit longer. I wouldn't say significantly longer than tu. So space ni is a premium. So cadangan kita, biarlah kita kalau boleh kita sit down dengan semua pihak berkenaan, daripada highway operator seperti Plus, seperti ANE, dan siapa-siapa yang nanti yang operate WCE, West Coast Expressway ni, dengan LLM, Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia, di mana kita boleh buat planning. So sekarang memang tak muat, let's say. So bila when is the next time you are going to revise the planning for the rest areas ataupun macam mana? Because ideally we want to see apa space lebih daripada satu charging point per location. In case satu occupy ataupun satu tak jalan. Sebab sekarang ni dia sebiji. Dan Shell ni adalah 2 biji dekat satu point. Tapi what if actually benda ni you are already, let's say tinggal 10 km je range, you sampai dekat sana, sangkut. Walaupun the next one is 50 km away, that will leave you stranded ataupun it's inconvenient for you lah. So benda-benda macam ni I think it's like kita galakkan ada better coordination ataupun better dialogue di antara semua pihak berkenaan supaya they are not doing decisions by themselves. So benda-benda macam ni actually because it's infrastructure planning, it's very long range. So kalau kita don't plan properly and don't make allowances, for example space, for example power dan sebagainya, nanti bila time comes and we really need to do it, kena retrofit lagi mahal, buang duit juga.
But I'm also wondering, because dalam bajet baru ni the government bagi incentive like RM2,500 kan untuk charging, whether you want to install a charger at home or at least for subscription service pun you boleh get the same kind of tax break. But I don't see any of the existing players trying to take advantage of that in order to help them build network or something. So I don't understand kenapa, or maybe they don't see value in it ke macam mana. Because in my mind, macam cakap lah, BMW pasang but they put at their showroom and it's probably free for owners right now, right?
Yeah.
But other people might be a little embarrassed to use it.
Yeah, betul.
Right? So
betul.
If they make it public and somehow, I don't know lah, I mean this is all things yang kena fikirkan lah kan. If you actually charge, allow people to pay for it, then maybe people will be less embarrassed. Right? And if you then offer that subscription service, like everybody, there might be some company that has to pool all these charges into one app and then charge a subscription, so you can just subscribe to one app and then be able to use all these without being embarrassed because you're paying for it, at least lah. I'm just thinking that could be and also do you think that as a start lah, perhaps somebody should sponsor plus one vehicle yang ada bateri untuk pergi charge kereta yang standard. What do you think?
I think the CPOs are aware and they are also at least one of the CPO punya person that I spoke to is very excited about the 2,500 because exactly as you said lah, it's a good way for them to actually go and get the subscription money upfront and
At least some revenue kan.
Yes, correct. Tapi masalahnya sekarang sama, similar to the JPJ issue lah. It's still not 100% clear.
Oh,
For example, kita tak tahu lagi in terms of black and white-nya because benda ni yang your claim 2,500 ni only happens nanti for next year assessment year 2022.
okay.
So by right actually kalau kita nak be 100% sure there's a black and white coming from LHDN ke coming from MOF ke, cakap okay, this is how it works in terms of the 2,500 ringgit. This is how you do it. Ini ada masa mula announce kita ada allowance similar macam buku ataupun beli komputer tu, masa that was announced at the budget, tapi lepas tu ada some very clear guidelines or very clear instructions on what qualifies and what doesn't qualify in black and white.
Yeah.
So that then consumers more confident. Okay, kalau I install charger at home, yes, it qualifies. But kadang-kadang nanti you don't want something to happen, so dia pergi install lah charger, ambil installer dia, tapi bila time nak claim nanti next year, time assessment February, March next year, dia can only claim kalau guna locally made charger ataupun benda-benda macam tu. The rules that are imposed later on. So benda ni actually kalau betul lah kita nak orang menggunakan the 2,500, which is to then catalyze the whole charging, the black and white needs to be very clear and the black and white needs to be there. Hopefully dekat dalam LHDN website ke, dalam MOF website ke, clear what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and this is how you do it, and this is how you qualify. Because ada soalan-soalan, for example, this is individual tax assessment, how about company? Tak ada. We still don't have the clarity on that. So like I said lah, this is similar to the JPJ one, di mana some of the people who actually want to renew their EV road tax, seronok lah pergi nak renew, dah exam kan, dia Tuku Zafrul dah cakap dah exam, pergi kat JPJ, dia cakap kita punya sistem masih yang lama, so encik boleh bayar lah dulu 6 bulan, lepas tu nanti kita bagi refund. So benda-benda macam ni I think it's not helpful for us to move forward. Dah lah kita punya exemption period ni 2 tahun je, so we already lost like a month on this.
I'm a little perplexed as to how that could have happened because obviously I'm not bukan pakar dalam how the government works kan. So just in my mind I thought once the bill has been passed into law in Parliament, there should be a gazette that comes down, like the word of God, and that should all just be done. But somehow text pun tak clear. So
Wallahu alam. Saya pun
kan?
I think mungkin, but to be fair, we don't know lah. So kalau I think sometimes there are some unkind comments in the articles in the Facebook, social media semua that about how macam-macam lah. I think some of the stuff is quite unkind, and I think on one hand is actually we need to see that there are hardworking people in all of the government departments who are trying to do their best. Tapi we just don't have enough information and apakah kekangan dia orang, what is stopping them, what's the problem, is it system problem, IT problem, the system takes time to actually modify ke, ataupun is it a process problem di mana the people who are supposed to do the change need some black and white, and the black and white is not forthcoming because walaupun dah ada gadget tu pun kenalah pergi dekat various government department and then kena arahan-arahan, kena everything has to be in black and white, and then mungkin proses itu tak jalan ke, ataupun mungkin it's a people organisation issue di mana because benda ni affect widely, so JPJ cannot decide, this one should come from MOF, because it's cukai. So benda-benda macam ni we don't have enough information, so kadang-kadang I feel sad also lah seeing the comments, people just simply hantam orang-orang JPJ pun kena hantam, padahal kita tak tahu ujung pangkal. Janganlah macam tu, tak baik. I think the best we can do is just try and find out, ask questions, why is this so, is it a system issue, macam mana, and hopefully there will be more clarity, and hopefully the things will be fixed sooner rather than later lah.
In my mind I was thinking that the problem was with the zero, because zero means no consideration. The no consideration, how do you issue a receipt?
Yeah, maybe
it could be as simple as that
in
in a JPJ system, Even road tax structure itu pun RM1 kan, dia charge RM1. So you charge RM1, at least you
Ada
can,
nominal value. Yep.
you pergi hospital pun you bayar RM1, dia bagi receipt kan. Kalau tak ada consideration, macam mana dia nak bagi receipt? So I think that could be one reason why JPJ is having a problem, but I don't know whether that is the thing lah. Okay, so in terms of charging ni kan, let's say forward, is there anybody that's looking at what is needed in the next few years, and how should the distribution of these charges be? Where should they be? What sort of performance they should have in terms of, residential ke, destination ke, high speed charger ke? Do you have any thoughts on macam mana, what kind of planning that is needed? Because since that nobody is doing any kind of planning, kalau agak Perkema kata 1,000, that's what they want to do, right? They might have their methodology or whatever, but that's their business. That's what they want to install. You can't say anything. It's their money, right? They want to do it.
Yeah. I think that's the correct point. It's actually like, because I think like even BMW bila dia cakap dia nak install charger dekat dealer, dekat highway ni, it's their money lah technically. So my personal view is actually so far the only planning actually in terms of kalau the government body wants to do is only at a very broad sense, not where the charging locations are and not even what power the chargers should be at, but more along the side of macam kita normally lah, macam for example kalau kita nak buat kita punya electricity sector, every 5 years there's a rolling plan di mana kita check demand dekat mana dekat Peninsular Malaysia ni. For example, kalau lah ada taman industri baru yang diwujudkan, macam for example dekat Kuantan, dekat Gebeng tu dulu kan, masa tu sebelum ni memang tak ada apa-apa dekat situ, tiba-tiba kita cakap nak buat a huge industrial park requiring a lot of power. So the planning for that is usually taken into account in this rolling 5-year plan between PU, tenaga, Suruhanjaya Tenaga, dan everybody that is related to that, in terms of, okay, in that case we know there's a big power requirement over here, macam mana kita nak buat transmission dia, macam mana kita nak buat distribution dia. So and then similarly also kalau masa orang nak buat kilang, orang nak buat commercial buildings macam baru ni kan, kita tengok baru-baru dekat PNB punya tower tu, TRX punya tower, semua ni taken into account. And I think the planning for that, kalau nak buat untuk EV charging network ni, fokus kepada charging corridor. Kita tahu kita punya koridor perjalanan utama dekat semenanjung Malaysia ni adalah North South Highway, East West Highway, Lebuh Raya Pantai Timur, dan mungkin ada jalan-jalan federal roads dekat East Coast tu. So that is the main area kalau nak buat planning. That's why I said earlier, it's actually benda ni penting kalau lembaga lebuh raya together with the highway operators, together with the users, sit down and figure out where are the potential hotspots, because it's a finite list kalau nak ikutkan, because kalau nak buat dekat every stop pun mungkin tak logik masa permulaan ni lah, sebab kita range tu between 100 and 120 km. Yang penting kena buat satu and multiple charges per location dan sebagainya. So that sort of high level planning I think is important. Tapi setakat nak go down to the detail, whether it's 150 kilowatt, whether it's 350 kilowatt, 50 kilowatt seperti tu, I think better leave it to the market, let the users decide what is good for them. Because right now, I'm very happy now users have a choice. Kalau dia orang nak charge at 180 kilowatts, they can pay a lot of money for it, but they get 180 kilowatts, mungkin rendah sikit kalau you don't drive a 800 volt car. Ataupun you want to pay less, you go for the 50 kilowatt, which is actually about 40-30 kilometers earlier. So tak payah nak government yang suruh, mesti ada ni, mesti ada tu. Mungkin dia akan suruh, kalau government nak buat requirement tu, mungkin dia cakap, okay, at every charging forecourt, there cannot be only one type of charger. Okay, that's fine. But setakat nak dictate the detail tu, I think better, because government, when they want to dictate something, usually they have to rely on the expertise of the industry anyway, and kadang-kadang the industry also, they don't know any better, so they take their best guess and government makes it compulsory, padahal that's not what the user actually wants. So nanti haywire sikit benda ni, and will result in a lot of wastage and very slow moving. Dah lah, the technology is moving very fast. One example we see is actually that Singapore, strangely enough, my sources say is actually Tesla has had a very hard time to get their punya wall box certified for use in Singapore. And
But-
this wall box is in use in UK, is in use in Australia, is in use in Hong Kong, all the same voltage, same configuration. Why? Because Singapore, they have their own very stringent set of standards, and I'm not privy to any of the details, but the fact is actually that it's very, very pelik that Tesla was selling its cars, I think starting August ke September last year lagi. Tapi sampai sekarang dia punya wallbox tak diluluskan oleh kerajaan, because the kerajaan is very strict. And this what I mean is actually like kalau Malaysia we want to have the government too strictly regulate, then the pace of innovation, the pace of new products coming in that actually will make life better for the users will be slower. So my personal preference is to actually government look after the safety, make sure that these things won't kill you or set houses on fire. Government focus on the standards to make sure that it is interoperable. Benda ni kalau cocok dalam grid kita tak runtuh dan sebagainya. But leave the other specifics to the market. Let the players figure out what is best for their customer and also for their product. For example, Porsche focuses only on CCS connector and only on 800 volt capable DC, because ialah dia punya produk pakai benda tu kan. So kalau kita nak paksa dia pasang CHAdeMO, buat apa orang tekan subsidize CHAdeMO? So benda-benda macam ni lah. So fortunately also I'm very happy to note that kat Malaysia we already have different players. We have very big charge EV, separate from Jom Charge, separate from Pak Easy Shell Recharge. So now that we have these three players, at least three big players, and there are a bunch of other smaller ones. There's the Pestec one, there's the Charge and Go, and these are just the names that off the top of my head. I think ada 2-3 lagi charging companies. They can compete with each other and offer different products to the different segments. For example, they can offer maybe cheaper AC charging for a certain segment, and they can offer really high speed charging for another segment, but let the market decide, let the consumers decide. So we like it, we pay for it. We don't like it, we don't pay for it, then they move on to another product. Itu saja.
What do you think about? I was thinking maybe the government could give it could be a way to encourage every district to get a charging station, for example. Maybe you give the first one to open, you get quick rent free for 5 years or something. I don't know, whatever, something like that. Just to get.
I think those kinds of incentives work. Actually, we can see apa macam dekat UK, especially, and I think some areas, some countries in Europe also. They use the local government, even like the state level and the local councils to go something like apa namanya. So their method of dispensing the help is actually quite good, because they tried doing like what we normally do in Malaysia. It's actually, let's say the local council, we have a budget of 10 million. We want to set up 100 charging stations. We do a tender. So one company bolot semua. And then after that, actually then the company, in order to win the bid, macam-macam lah promises, and usually on these cases, and believe me, I've seen it so many times, when you have projections, you have the minimum projection, you have the best projection, and guess which one they will use? Right? And then when the reality hits, benda ni dekat sini, suddenly, I cannot make money. But what happens? Bail out. So they have tried this dekat other countries, and it seems that maybe this is not the best method. So what some other countries do, some other jurisdictions do, what they do is actually they will just open up and just say, okay, look, we have a budget of 100 million. We will give you matching grants until duit ni habis. But in order for you to apply for the matching grants, it has to meet this criteria. 1, you have to open up for all types of connectors. You have to open up for all types of customers. 2, you have to make sure that at least 50% covers this area where is the poorer areas of the city, for example, so that you don't have inequality of access. Dan syarat-syarat macam tu lah. So what they do is actually, we will match up to 50%, let's say. So kalau kawan tu, so there's his own money also involved in the charging operator. and then they get this money to help defray the cost, because at this early stage pun you know that this is going to be low utilization because you are using this to help catalyze people buy EV. So the government wins in the sense of you only spend half of the money and you get twice the number of charges. Plus, the government wins because the risk is also borne by the individual private operators. And the government wins because then they get a say in how they want to socially direct where these charges are, and even like, for example, in some cases, I believe also they do cap even how much they can, the charging point operators can impose the fees to the consumer. So these creative things to actually help do this, and I think that kalau let's say like Majlis Bandaraya Shah Alam wants to do this, so you even just allocate maybe like 100,000, 200,000, just start small, start piloting this, and that also hopefully will open up the provider sector, because we really need good talent in this sector to make sure that nanti when we really need to grow, when the growth curve goes up like this, we need good, smart, competent people to install these chargers, because otherwise it could be dangerous kalau you just take some guy who had like 3 days experience, baru graduate university, you bagi dia main benda ni 300, 400, 500 amps worth of electricity. So that one is also, so there's also the talent aspect that we can help, the government can help by just starting it organically small like this.
Okay, but in terms of specifying, do you think that the government should specify a single type of connection for the country?
That's a good question. I think that Singapore, for example, they make it compulsory because Singapore only CCS charges are allowed initially. Lepas tu, I think after some lobbying from the Chademo folks, they say, okay, Chademo also can. So in our side, there's no black and white yet. And then Mari is saying that they are setting the standard to be CCS. I believe actually even some of the other government agencies also are favouring CCS. Tapi unfortunately itulah, kita tak ada lagi one central website that everybody can go through. So okay, in Malaysia you must have CCS. Tak ada lagi. We must have that black and white, because again, this is something even investors are looking at. Because kalau kita masuk kat Malaysia ni, can just rojak whatever you want, can use the Tesla connector, can use the GPT connector, it's going to result in inefficiency lah, because it's going to cost you more to provide charging stations that cater for all of them. And kalau you tak cater for all of them, then you lose out on the customers that are using charging or that are using GPT. So I think this is an area where the government should step up and just say that, okay, look, this is the standard. Kalau you want an additional standard, please come and talk to us. We will discuss it. At least someone should step up and take charge.
Is there like a ratio that you know of charging point to cars that's workable? No.
Ada. Because ini very very dependent on a lot of different external factors. For example, the density of the population. Kalau dekat Singapore, for example, you may not need as many chargers because they're all very close together, so you don't need to charge very often.
But their target was 50,000 chargers, right?
Yeah, their target was a lot, but that included the overnight charges dekat dia punya HDB dengan AC semua tu. So that one also is a very big deal right now in Singapore, where a lot of people it's still like a lot of people live in very high density, so they need a place to overnight charge, and people who wants to use EV but cannot overnight charge, it's not as nice to use an EV. So that's tapi the bottom line is actually it's hard to say. It's actually for a certain, let's say for KL we need X charges per Y BEV, because the number will be different for Penang, the number will be different for Johor and Johor Bahru and sebagainya lah. So that's why it's actually, I think the best thing to do is to actually just keep everybody current on the status. For example, kalau lah kita boleh publish official figures of how many BEVs on the road for quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, 2022, then the charging point operators can actually see and say, okay, in that case we need to invest more. So let the market take care of that, and the way the market can efficiently address the supply and demand issue is by information transparency. And that is lacking JPJ is not publishing the BEV registration figures. Kalau BEV registration figures boleh break down by state lagi bagus, because then the CPOs can know where to concentrate their efforts, where to invest. And ideally, of course, but then CPOs will make their charges available information-wise. That's why we have plug shares. So then that information is also available. So then we can see lah, kalau tiba-tiba dia cakap, oh maybe dekat area let's say PJ ni dah banyak sangat dah charger, so it's too dense, so you can see very low utilization over there. So stop lah building over there. Then we can start building elsewhere pula, dekat Ampang ke sekarang ni. You know that actually in Klang Bali, dekat Ampang Gombak area ada sebiji je charger.
Alright.
Orang Gombak tak suka EV kot.
Itu kat mana pakai MAM dia?
Dia dekat Ampang ada sebiji perkemar punya DC, tapi even AC chargers dekat Gombak tak ada tau.
Betul lah.
Banyak.
Apa nama tu? So I was thinking that, you know, because petrol companies, they do know how to distribute their petrol station. They have the numbers in their head, the ratio, whatever. So it seems to me that in order to help this move along, the government needs a deadline of the ban on ICE, because then they can better project the numbers. Without that, then how do you even think about, you know, if there's a definite date, cut-off date, then you know, okay, by this time we will have 600,000 EVs going to the market because it's the ban date, right, or whatever the TIV is. Then macam the whole country we have 4,000 petrol stations, Petronas ke Shell ke, don't tahu lah kat mana letak. I think it's something that we need to worry about. Like you say, let the market decide. But I think the market needs that kind of certainty.
That kind of
dia boleh.
Correct. So that's why I think in Europe and UK and some of the other countries also, they did that. Actually, they set like a ban deadline so that then apa namanya, people can prepare and can plan for it. The tricky bit is actually even over there. Actually, there's a lot of pushback on that. You can see actually some of the articles being published by the industry associations representing the ICE manufacturers. Oh, this one shouldn't be a hard and fast target because you're not really saving your emissions so much and so forth. So the pushback actually helps helps the industry, but also it doesn't help them because it actually makes the target more fuzzy, as in less certain. So then it actually doesn't allow them to plan properly. But coming back to Malaysia, it's actually there's, in theory, kalau you set like a target ban of ICE vehicles, that could help people to plan. But I think also it's a very hard thing to make happen because there are so many interested parties with different points of views, and in order to actually get something that the majority will be happy with, there are too many discussions, too many special interests, too many, lobbying that will go on to actually make it very difficult to come to a landing on this date. So if you ask me, actually, my preference would be to leave that alone and you focus on the emissions part, on the carbon intensity part, where, for example, we can actually...
Here's the thing, the JPJ can't even make sure that the drivers are tested properly, and they want to blame driving school. Enforcement is not our strong point lah, you know, and emissions are even a lot more difficult to enforce than, I don't know, some simple things. So I don't know how we move.
In theory also, that would be what the economists call actually the economically most efficient way to do this, because then you are actually targeting the right KPI that you actually want, which is actually to...
I mean, I obviously agree with that, you know, that if you... I mean, for the longest time, we've been trying to figure out how to include environmental costs into our accounting, but nobody has figured out a way to do this, and this is certainly one more way to help and do this lah. Kan? Okay, so coming back to Malaysia, you're talking about charging and all that, the charging rates just now. And you cakap pun memang ada tempat yang sekarang ni mostly people are charging by the minute rather than by the kilowatt, kan?
Yes.
And why is that? And
for the DC chargers especially, the providers cannot actually sell kilowatt hours, because in order for you to sell kilowatt hours according to the Electricity Supply Act, that you need to have a license issued by the Energy Commission lah, by Suruhanjaya
Yeah.
Tenaga. And my understanding is actually like there are some initial discussions with Suruhanjaya Tenaga how to make the process simpler, because the whole, I guess, thinking behind the whole kenapa kena lesen kalau nak jual kilowatt hour ni adalah if you are generating your own electricity, so it's more like for the IPP scale, bukannya for EV charging. So apa namanya, my understanding is also that the folks at the kementerian are receptive, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to make this easier. So actually that's one main restriction lah, because benda ni kena ada lesen, and lesen ni sekarang at this point in time very leceh to obtain because it's designed for something else. I think that's the bottom line sekarang ni. So moving forward, we hope that actually this issue will get resolved. However, there are pros and cons jugalah charging by the minute ni sekarang ni, because at least from a user perspective, sebab we have fewer DC chargers than we do BEVs, it helps to galakkan orang to get off of the charger faster. As soon as they are done, they get off because it's charging by the minute. Kan, as you know, actually bila you charge your EV, bila the top 10% tu memang slow sangat lah. So kalau you charge by kilowatt hour, then you get someone sitting there for kita nak jalan dah ni, we just need 20 minutes 15 minutes je, tapi dia nak charge sampai 100%. Tunggulah 40 minit 1 jam macam tu. So to me it's actually like it's okay if I don't have to tunggu because there's 3, 4, 5, 6 other chargers nearby. Tapi kita sekarang we have only that one. So in order to optimize the utilization, charging by the minute, that's a positive thing about it. The negative.
Do you think there's a need to actually change to charging by the kilowatt? To me, I don't see why.
But eventually we need, because the different cars have different charging capabilities. For example, the Mini is limited 50 kilowatts saja. Taycan can go up to 200 something. Tapi kadang-kadang the Mini by right actually should be able to use the 180 and get off in about 15-20 minutes max and just cabut aja. But he will get a lot less power, a lot less kilowatt hour than the Taycan in that same amount of time.
But that's why I think, like you say, let market forces play out, because the cheaper chargers, the lower capacity chargers are cheaper to install, right? So therefore you can charge, less time, less ringgit or less cent per minute. And because at the end of the day, once we all have EVs, we'll figure out which charging rate at what rate, then which is the best for our car. And I still think that the minute one is the better one, simply because it stops people hogging. And if you notice, BMW USA has just offered a new complimentary charging with electric,
tapi limited to 30 minutes.
Exactly. So that's that just confirm my suspicion that actually time is probably the best way to do this, and don't worry about the kilowatt.
Well, I would actually build up on that. Actually, in this situation, time is actually the answer. But I would also say it's actually that let's give the operators a choice, right? So they can actually say that maybe for the AC chargers dekat Mid Valley, dekat KLCC, we charge by time. So 1 hour is this much, the next hour is this much, and then they can do whatever they want lah. But for the DC, some DC chargers they may charge per minute, some DC chargers they may charge by kilowatt hour. But give them that option. So
I think you're right. Give them the option, and one will see clogging up of the station, one won't see, then they will just
exactly, and then they will start tweaking the model, and so that is actually where that's why I think that most important thing is actually like kita dekat Malaysia kadang-kadang the pengguna punya community ni pasif sangat, tak bising. So that's why I believe that pengguna punya community, as we grow the EV, kalau benda tu we feel that actually it can be improved. They're charging by the minute, benda tu tak clock, they're charging by the clock. We need to voice out, let the CPOs know, and then fortunately they are, like we said earlier, more than a handful of CPOs. Kalau dia ni malas tak buat, let's get the other one do it. Kalau charge EV rasa dia punya model is better served by all you can charge buffet style, never mind. Let's see what Pak Easy does. Let's see what Shell Charge does. Let's see what Jom Charge does. So that's where I think it's important for the government, bila government nak regulate this sector to have a very light touch and to make sure that they really know what's going on. to avoid the abuses, but to not also to tamp down
Restrict.
the innovation.
Hmm.
You don't want to strangle the innovation. Let them figure out what's best for their customers. Because the customers, kalau dia nak, like I said, dia bayar. Kalau dia tak nak, dia pergi tempat lain. Habis cerita.
Exactly. So the other thing now is range anxiety lah, as we're talking about charging and all that. Nah. You've had your car for quite a long time, and you get other guys with different battery sizes and all that.
Yeah.
For you, what do you think is a comfortable battery size? Because too big pun nanti dia too expensive, too heavy, and all sorts of other things. Is 75 kilowatt already enough or already excessive for you? What do you think?
Susah nak kata lah, because the thing is also like kalau nak ikutkan, for example, the Model 3 standard range, the first generation is only 58 kilowatt, tapi now dia dah naik 60 and I think 62 ke something like that, and then the long range even like from 70 75 to 80. So in terms of the battery capacity, it's hard to say, because that one depends of course on the because kalau nak cakap big battery pack generally are more expensive, betul, but battery prices are also declining in general. Tapi sekarang ni there's a crunch on the lithium lah, crunch on cobalt lah, crunch on nickel lah. The harga benda tu pun naik, okay, harga bateri tu naik, but in general the trend is that per kilowatt hour the harga will turun. So kalau nak cakapkan, okay, what is a good kilowatt hour, I would say is actually I would turn that into what is a good range, bergantung pada size kan. So for me in Malaysia, actually maybe a range of around 250 to 300 kilometer will be good once we get a higher density of DC charging network along the highways. For example kalau air keruh, kita ada satu cluster of maybe 6 DC fast charger 50 kilowatt. That means actually that whatever it is, when I travel down south, I know air keruh I can plug in and top up my car. So I don't have to worry. The shorter range car is just cheaper, lighter, and hopefully you're not lugging around the extra battery when you're using it 90% of the time in town.
Okay. So one last question lah with the current situation right now. If there's one thing that you like the government to focus on lah on our transition to EV ni, what would it be?
I think I would look at it like not so much like the normal answer would be like, oh, kita fokus kepada charging network, kita fokus kepada tax or proper tax. I think that all of that actually can be resolved. These are all issues that can be resolved. The important thing is to focus on how these issues are resolved. The governance, the process. For example, in what if, let's say there's a let's say whether there's a menteri, Jabatan Perdana Menteri, yang diberikan KPI ni. Okay, your KPI, YB Menteri, is to make sure that by the end of 2022, there's X number of BEVs that are registered. 2023, this much. 2024, this much, and so on and so forth. This is your KPI. You be in charge of this, and you are going to be held accountable. So, because the Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri, they are able to actually coordinate and steer all the rest of the kementerian, because EV ni they span across many kementerian, as you know. That actually, okay, we have Kementerian Alam Sekitar that kicked off the low carbon mobility blueprint. We have KETSA that's actually controlling the energy and the electricity sector. You have MOT yang ada JPJ, you have MOF yang bawa cukai, and even KPDN HEP pun ada, because they are the ones controlling the licensing for the petrol stations. They are controlling, they are also monitoring the prices. So kalau ada yang profiteering, they are supposed to be looking at it. So all these different ministries actually will need a leader, someone at the Prime Minister's department to actually help them sort out all these cross-ministry issues. So to me lah, actually, like kalau lah kita really want to have a very good chance of accomplishing our target, we need to have a better problem solving / pemantauan structure that is convened maybe every quarter, if not, kalau tak pun maybe every half a year, to actually just see what are the big issues, what are the big coordination issues. For example, if the issue is that apa namanya, the planning on the highways, for example, highway punya sign, kan sekarang ada sign ATM, sign petrol station semua tu, kalau letak EV charging punya is available at the next rest area tu pun, that one is lembaga lebuh raya under Kementerian Kerja Raya. And so technically that one also needs to be going through the proper process, the approval and so on and so forth. So benda-benda macam ni, actually that's why I think it's most important to actually have that government problem solving structure and monitoring structure to just figure out what is the problem and how do we solve it. What is the problem, how do we solve it? And make sure that benda-benda pelik-pelik ni tak berlaku lah. For example, kalau ada apa namanya, tiba-tiba we don't want, for example, can remember the early days of satellite TV, Astro dapat concession berapa, 30 tahun kerana dia boleh invest besar and provide apa namanya, the satellite, which is a very positive thing. But at that time, the risk of firing a satellite up and the money is so high that a concession made sense.
Yeah.
Now, actually, that kalau you say, a concession actually would enable like, the whole country to be covered in charges and everything, and nobody else can do it. I would argue it's actually no. The risk is not that high now because you can see there are private investors that are putting their money in already with a bunch of charging point operators. So there is no need for one single concession holder to suddenly have exclusivity. So benda-benda pelik macam ni, I hope that it can be addressed by this high-level committee, so that then we can see, okay, that may have made sense maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, but now no more already lah, because if you do that, you are extinguishing the innovation and the private businesses here. Tak guna lah. Actually, so benda-benda macam ni is actually, it's not only to address the issues, but also to head off strange ideas that might derail the adoption plan.
So basically you think that somebody senior lah, somebody like the Prime Minister should lead the steering committee or something like that?
At the very least, actually, a minister in the Prime Minister's department, because to be fair, it's also like YB Prime Minister, dia pun banyak benda lain, and this thing also can be...
But the reason why I mentioned Prime Minister is because even in the US, until the President opens his mouth, EV wasn't even really on the radar, you know? In China, obviously, it's led by the top.
Betul. Ada Indonesia, Jokowi himself actually. So I think that's the part. But it's almost like the Prime Minister is like the big boss, tapi there needs to be someone who actually will be chairing the detailed meetings to make sure that the things...
He can assign some minister in the Prime Minister's department to attend the meeting lah, but he needs to be the chairman.
Exactly, betul. So the KPI for the minister in the Prime Minister department kena lah, and then he is accountable to the PM. And then the PM say, kenapa lah this year kita punya target 5,000 but you only hit 3,000? Explain to me. And so he needs to explain, or she needs to explain, and hopefully this will help people take it a little bit more seriously lah. I think the big problem sekarang ni is actually there's so many ministries that are involved, and there's not enough talking between the ministries.
I think the one of the main problem is we are not building on a strong information foundation. And what I mean by that is that in order for you to say, okay, let's say we want to target this is the cut-off date, right, for ICE, for example, or you want to say this is the percentage of growth in EV that we want in every year, then people will say, where did you get that number from? Did you pull it out of thin air? So then you need to go back and say, okay, no, we got this from what? We got this from looking at the country's energy consumption and our expenses, and moving forward, we see that the world is going this direction, and therefore their energy efficiency will be going that direction, and we need to go there, and therefore we need an energy roadmap. I still go back to that energy roadmap because as long as we don't have that, there is no strong foundation on which to build everything else. And this is why nobody is taking it seriously, because when they're questioned about the target, and they say, where did you get that number from? I don't know. I can't say. You know, and I think that's a major problem in this country as a whole, systemically everywhere. When you don't build your argument on very strong foundation of solid data and information, then then everybody can just punch you down and poke holes into your arguments, and then it gets nowhere. And we have like 3-hour discussions and go back and scratch your head and say, what did we do just now? I don't know.
Yeah. I think that ultimately what strikes me is actually like I just saw a small article written about Elon Musk and how he practices, like he says, first principle thinking.
Yes.
Where you actually just strip down all the things that you don't know to be a fact, right? And so I think that actually is a useful tool to use. For example, kalau kat Malaysia, we need to think about, okay, why do we have these targets? Maybe then the target, the calculation should be that today the land transportation sector punya emissions per kilometer is this how much CO2 per kilometer, and you break it down further. Okay, kalau heavy transport is this much, kalau passenger cars is this much, and so on and so forth. And then you would have a fairly solid basis already. So in that case, we want to say is actually, okay, it looks like kalau kita benchmark against our neighbours, Thailand Indonesia is what, Singapore is what, we have room for aggressively halving it, let's say in 2040, right? In order to halve it, and these are some of the ways that we can do it: electrify passenger cars, electrify buses, electrify lorries, and so on and so forth. So then it drives the initiatives much more clearly. And so what my old boss Idris Jalla likes to say is actually then your true north is clear. Once your true north is clear, when problems come at you, you know what decisions to make.
Exactly.
Rather than terumbang-ambing, because like you say, like the foundation is not clear, then you kalau ni pun boleh, then you tend to take the easy way out.
Betul. Alright, itu dia. Well, anyway, thank you very much. We've clocked 1 hour already of your time.
Alright.
Maybe you can come again on a later date to talk about, what are the exciting models that are coming, and what do you think, what kind of cars you think we should have in Malaysia? Because one of the question yang selalu readers kita tanya, of course they're quite resentful by the fact that they can't afford the cars.
Betul.
They want the cars but they cannot afford the cars, and bila dia dengar kata the tax break is only for 2 years, lagi they become more resentful, because yang ada sekarang ni yang enjoy the tax break are all really nice expensive cars that they cannot afford. And they look at it and say, apa ni dia bagi tax break? These people are already rich, they don't need tax break. Aku nak tax break and I cannot get it. So that's another. Maybe we can.
I mean, I appreciate that view lah. I mean, it's also something that is quite real. We see every day. Hopefully, we can come up with a better, or rather a more nuanced approach daripada tax break ni. Macam mana kita nak bagi, basically accelerate making the sub 100,000 ringgit EVs available in Malaysia, because these things do exist. We know that.
Yes.
Dekat China, dekat some of the like Dacia Spring, for example, in Europe, even if you want a European car, those cars exist. Tapi also we need to make sure that people are mindful lah. Benda ni actually the technology is still maturing. The technology is still developing. Maybe it's better to wait a little bit for the prices to come down. And then maybe, for example, sekarang ni, just to share with you lah, my car at that time when I bought it was actually super fancy and all that stuff. Sekarang the base model EVs all have better range than my car. Right? And so maybe the longer you wait, the better deal you will get. But that one I think is something that is worth, like say lah, discussing in the future section.
Okay, thank you very much, Dato'.
Welcome.
Maybe we'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.
Alright, thank you.
Alright, bye. Okay, tu dia kita punya discussion tadi. Thank you so much, Dato' Syarul Halmi. Jadi ada apa-apa lagi tak soalan yang korang nak tanya tentang perbincangan kita hari ni? Sebab saya rasa kita cover banyak ground tadi, termasuklah isu kenapa dia orang charge ikut minit. Itu antara penerangan yang kita dah dapat tadi, kenapa charge ikut minit. Dan saya sendiri berpendapat yang cara charge ikut minit ni sebenarnya banyak juga kelebihan dia, sebab ia membantu orang untuk tidak spend too much time dekat charging station. Sebab kalau you tahu charging station ni dia, ataupun charging time untuk kereta elektrik ni, dia macam paling cepat tu antara sampai 80% lah sebagai contohnya. Up to 80% memang you probably perlukan hanya setengah jam. Setengah kereta 25 minit, setengah kereta 20 minit aja untuk sampai 80%. Tapi daripada 80% nak pergi 100% tu akan double masa dia. Kalau tadi kita perlukan setengah jam untuk sampai 80%, kita akan perlukan lagi setengah jam nak sampai 80, daripada 80 pergi ke 100%. Kalau tadi kita perlukan 20 minit untuk pergi 80%, dan chances nak pergi ke 100% tu could be another 20 to 30 minutes. So itu akan, kalau kita charge ikut kuasa kilowatt, orang akan tunggulah. Sebab dia tak kisah tunggu berapa lama pun, dia akan dapat penuh kilowatt tu. Jadi dekat banyak keadaan di Eropah dan Amerika Syarikat, dia orang tak nak pun encourage you untuk charge sampai 100%, kecuali memang ada keperluan lah untuk long road trip lah, kan. Betul lah kata Awang Hisham ni, memang satu masa nanti kita akan lihat nge-charge hampir di setiap parking lah, pasal itu memang tempat buat duit lah, kan. Dan of course ini memang menjadi satu isu lah, macam Mugen kata, kita tak nampak pergerakan, kita tak nampak macam di Indonesia, di Singapura dah ada taxi hybrid, dan kita masih lagi again, I think this all falls back to the fact that kalau kita tak ada energy roadmap, then the government cannot assess secara jelas the economic benefit, the financial benefit of converting to EV. Jadi bila dia tak ada nampak kelebihan keuangan, kelebihan ekonomi untuk berganjak ke EV ni, jadi dia sukar nak merancang dia punya pergerakan dia. Sebagai contohnya, kenapa you nak encourage orang beli hybrid tadi tu, kan? Pasal hybrid kita tahu lagi mahal, lagi sukar nak maintain macam-macam. But it's like a step, baby step that you kena ambil just to get people used to the idea. So itu is part and parcel of long term planning lah, in terms of the energy usage for the country. Pasal nak kena encourage people to move to a certain direction. So some of these things require baby step. Setengah tu dah boleh ambil langkah besar-besar lah. Jadi ini memang satu proses yang agak sukar, dan kerajaan kena lebih tegas dan lebih bersemangat lah, saya rasa, dalam hal ni. Itu pasal memang perlu Perdana Menteri menjadi pengerusi jawatan kuasa pemandu lah untuk EV ni, dan itu yang sekarang kita menjadi kita punya push sekarang lah untuk benda tu. Ya, buat masa ni memang PM masih lagi tak terlihat lah di era EV ni di Malaysia ni. So itu yang kita nak cuba. Mungkin kalau you all boleh tolong tuliskan surat ke email, hantar email kepada siapa-siapa yang patut ke, kan, just get the message out, so that this thing perlu berganjak dengan lebih cepat lagi, bukan untuk just environment, tapi just for the overall benefit of having kenderaan ataupun sistem pengangkutan yang lebih cekap tenaga. Because anything yang lebih cekap tenaga, dia punya cost akan turun lah. Dan cost turun, then you have more room for expansion for the economy dan sebagainya. The multiple benefits lah. Of course, some people will continue to say macam mana dengan Petronas, dengan minyak tu masih lagi ada kegunaan dia. Kita akan terus gunakan minyak untuk pelbagai benda lah, untuk plastik, untuk chemicals, untuk all sorts of lubricant. Masih lagi boleh menggunakan minyak yang digali dari tanah. Cuma jumlah yang kita perlu gali setiap tahun tu berkurangan lah. Of course dia ada trade off dia lah. Kita kena gali lebih lithium, kan, lebih nikel, lebih kobalt dan benda macam tu. Tapi untuk yang bateri ni, kita boleh recycle kita semula. Bila dia dah habis hayat dia, hantar untuk recycle, dia extract balik lithium, kobalt, nikel, manganese, dan boleh gunakan semula. Tapi minyak dah bakar, tak boleh nak kita semula balik, kan. Yang ini memang masalah, itu kita tak boleh nak buat apalah. Itu keadaan tu kita biarkan dulu. Sambil tu kita still kena usahakan lah. Kena have to move something, at least at the tahap pegawai-pegawai kerajaan kita nampak ada usaha lah, kan. Walaupun tahap politik, kepimpinan politik mungkin ada ketidakstabilan, itu kita tak boleh nak buat apa, itu kita biarkan dulu. Kita abaikan aja, kita teruskan juga usaha kita. At least we put something in place lah. So at least kalau ada kerajaan baru masuk pun ada something in place, dan kita boleh build again on that thing again. Waalaikumsalam Tuan Fawaz Ilmi, apa khabar hari ni? Terima kasih lah Mayam jenguk kita, macam biasalah, kan. Kita setuju untuk start petition to EV for government attention. I think kita kena jadi pengguna yang lebih bersuara. Macam Datuk Syarul tadi cakap, kita punya pengguna kat Malaysia ni kadang-kadang terlalu pasif. Dan kalau you pernah tengok, saya pernah juga bawa raja email lah masuk ke channel kita, cerita kerana kita memang pengguna kat Malaysia ni dia tak tahu apa nak cakap, kat mana nak cakap untuk meningkat ataupun membangkitkan masalah yang kita dihadapi lah. Jadi kita kat sini cuba nak jadikan keluarga Fantastico ni, keluarga FTV ni sebagai keluarga yang lebih berinteraksi, yang lebih bertindak, yang lebih orang panggil aktivis dalam apa-apa juga bidang yang kita ada, dan yang untuk membantu kita menjadi negara yang lebih maju. Sebab negara-negara maju ni kalau kita tengok contoh macam Jepun apa semua, rakyat dia memang aktivis yang aktif lah. Di Jepun, di Jerman ke di mana ke, memang akan persoalkan setiap benda yang kerajaan dia buat, sama ada tahap federal ke, tahap state ke, tahap local council ke, memang semua dia akan persoalkan lah. Kalau apa dia tak setuju, dia tak suka, semua dia persoalkan. Dan apabila berlaku begitu, pasal kita tak payah nak fikir nak ubah sistem politik apa semua, itu terlalu besar. Yang penting kita buka mulut je. Itu pasal dalam Islam pun dia cakap kalau boleh tegur dengan tangan, tak boleh tegur dengan tangan, tegur dengan mulut. Kita nak tegur dengan tangan tu kena tangkap kan, orang pakai bateri. So kita buka mulut. Bila kita buka mulut, kita tanya, lama-lama benda tu jadi satu kelemasan juga, dia jadi rimas lah. Kalau buat macam ni je orang tanya. Jadi yang paling senang sekali ialah buat benda yang betul. Jadi tak ada orang tanya, tak ada orang persoalkan. Jadi kita bila kita nampak satu yang tak setuju, kita persoalkan, sentiasa persoalkan. Itu yang saya nak cuba tanamkan dalam kita punya keluarga kecil FTV kita ni, dan kita cuba push benda tu, and all the time kita become lebih aktif dalam kita punya community, dalam kita punya industri, dan dalam kita punya kejiranan. Sebab ini satu yang sangat penting lah. Dalam sekarang kita tengah melakukan anjakan ke elektrik ini, memang kita memerlukan suara-suara rakyat yang nampak macam bijak, bermaklumat. Jadi sukar pihak-pihak yang berwajib ni nak kelentong kita lah. Kita tak mau kena kelentong dah, kita dah cukup dah. Tak mau kena kelentong. Kalau ada grup yang boleh jadi pressure group, group campaign, this can be a good platform. Sekarang ni saya nampak My Evoke lah yang cuba, dan juga Pakema sedang cuba menjadi grup lah. Kalau kita nak tubuhkan kat sini satu pun, saya tak ada masalah. Saya sanggup nak bagikan suara kan. Kalau kawan-kawan tubuhkan satu pressure group ke, saya tak ada masalah nak berikan suara kat sini lah. Generator untuk tarik keluar ilmu info knowledge yang ada untuk saya buat presentation kawan-kawan tentang scenario. Nak ambil daripada video saya itu, silakan apa-apa yang saya ada cakap yang bermanfaat ambil. Tapi saya hanya berdoa jangan ada ambil benda yang tak bermanfaat lah. Kadang-kadang saya cakap benda yang tak elok ke, harap tak jadi macam tu lah. Kalau yang bermanfaat dia rasa nak ambil, nak gunakan lah, tak ada masalah. Dekat Patani, Thailand dah banyak port charger dan komuniti Melayu kat sana dapat menguasai MDZ SEV. Kita tak tahu bila. Ini di Thailand memang dia orang agak agresif. So kita nak lah jadi macam tu kan. Kita tengok Tesla Bond pun, Bond Island pergi ke Thailand kan, dia kahwin dengan orang Thailand. So dia boleh testing kereta Tesla dia, charging ada macam-macam lah, semua boleh buat kan lah. So it's something yang yalah, kita belum lagi, tapi kita jangan give up. Memang perjalanan ni agak sukar buat masa ni nampaknya, tapi kalau kita nak menjadi pelopor, kita kena berusaha sikit lah kan. Especially kalau kita nak kereta yang lebih mampu milik, jadi apa kita kena buat? Kita kena make sure charging facility ada. Kalau kita dah beli kereta ni, kita nak juga ada charging facility kan. So kita kena teruslah cakap dengan kawan-kawan yang dalam industri oil and gas, retail, macam mana nak bantu pasang kat mana, encourage them to install charging station ataupun charging ports, So benda-benda ni semua memerlukan tindakan semua pihak yang terlibat, termasuk orang yang pemilik shopping mall, yang jaga apartment kompleks, kondo, dia pun nak kena pasang, all those joint management committee kan. Dan juga orang panggil developer kan, developer untuk all this new whatever lah, building ke apa ke, dia semua kena pasang, siap-siap dah wiring untuk charging ke, ataupun siap pasang charging kat rumah ke, whatever lah, I don't know. Sebab benda tu memang nanti akan menjadi satu keperluan untuk semua orang kan. Inilah saya punya usaha lah, saya punya inisiatif ni ialah ini. Salah satunya lah saya bercakap dengan kawan-kawan, so kawan-kawan lebih sedar. Kalau kawan-kawan nak teruskan kat luar ataupun nak datang balik kat sini, ada another feedback loop untuk make the voice louder. I'm happy to be facilitating. Dan kalau you rasa ada anything else yang saya boleh buat, mungkin nak jadikan apa-apa, nak minta buatkan surat ke apa ke, bolehlah, kita nak aturkan perjumpaan ke, saya boleh usahakan. Sambil tu saya juga bukan setakat di sini je, kita juga cuba dengan orang industri, dan kita cubalah nak sampaikan apa maklumat yang kita ada untuk encourage dia orang tahu betul-betul, untuk menggalakkan dia orang untuk berganjak ke EV. Tak pastilah bang, Ni akan jadilah. So sekarang ni masalah untuk Mercedes ni, saya rasa memang betul-betul untuk Mercedes-Benz tu kekangan bekalan. Saya pun tak tahu kenapa Mercedes-Benz punya kekangan bekalan tu nampak macam teruk sangat berbanding dengan BMW. Mungkin one of it is because dia orang tak ada kilang di China. So BMW pasang dia punya iX dekat China. So mungkin Mercedes punya isu itu. Jadi kereta pun tak ada dia bawa masuk. Jadi nak suruh dia buat apa? Mercedes pasang dekat shopping center banyak. Pasal untuk dia punya AC charger untuk dia orang punya plug-in hybrid memang ada. You pergi dekat Bangsa, dekat The Curve, dekat mana. Banyak aja yang ada memang Mercedes punya AC charger. Tapi untuk DC fast charger tu belum ada sebab dia tak bawa masuk kereta elektrik lagi. Untuk BMW dia dah start bawa masuk. Tu yang dia pun start pasang lah dekat dia punya dealership. So ini semua akan mula berlaku lah. So macam saya cakap tahun lepas lah, kita dah cakap tahun lepas lah. Tahun lepas sebenarnya tahun untuk company-company yang bijak dia dah panik siap lah. Company yang selom sikit, lambat sikit, dia panik tahun ni lah. Macam Honda dia dah habak tahun lepas dah. Tapi ialah ambil masa lah nak tutup kilang, nak readjust balik. So it's a good news lah, Honda dah tutup satu kilang. Dan untuk buat benda ni lah kan. Jadi untuk orang politik ni pun macam saya cakap, saya tengah cuba nak jemput kan. Kawan-kawan pun kena tolong bagi ramp up sikit kita punya viewer numbers kan. Ajak kawan-kawan datang supaya bila ramai sikit shock lah kita nak panggil kan. Kadang-kadang orang politik ni pun dia kalau tak ada audience dia tak nak juga datang. Tapi Syed Saddiq tu dah 2-3 kali dah kawan-kawan sebut. Saya cuba dapat lah. Kalau Syahrizan ada cara nak pujuk Syed Saddiq naik mai-mai ke sini, saya pun on je. Kalau tidak saya akan usahakan dengan cara saya lah. Pasal saya rasa memang Syed Saddiq ni walaupun dia muda dan mungkin kurang berpengalaman, tapi dia ada semangat. Jadi pengalaman tu is something that you akan dapat by time lah kan. With mistakes then you get experience. So tak ada masalah. Ini yang masalahnya pasal dia ada beberapa kementerian Jadi saya pun nak cakap pun saya tak pasti. MOT, Kementerian Pengangkutan, jaga all the licensing, road tax semua tu bagai semua kan. Kemudian dia ada macam Kementerian Tenaga pula yang itu yang jaga charging punya rates tu macam mana, sama ada you boleh jual kilowatt ataupun tidak, tu dia orang punya hal pula. And of course MITI ialah perusahaan utama, jadi dia pun ada macam mana nak encourage industri, nak bawa charging station punya ataupun teknologi nak bina charging station tu, siapa nak bagi insentif apa tu, itu dia orang pula kan. It's a very wide ranging problem. That's why sebagai penutup tadi kita kata ini memerlukan tahap Perdana Menteri nak menjadi pengerusi jawatan kuasa pemandu tu. Sebab dia tak boleh tahap kementerian biasa pun tak boleh nak handle benda ni sebenarnya. Kalau you tengok dekat US pun, bila Joe Biden bercakap tentang EV, barulah nampak ada minat pasaran. Walaupun sebelum tu dah ada Tesla, tapi tak ada minat. Sebab political will tak ada. Dekat Europe lain. Dekat Europe dia memang ada political will nak shift pergi ke EV. So dekat China pun you tengok the highest leadership yang drive this thing, yang tentukan dia punya insentif lah, itulah ini peraturan itu peraturan ini. Jadi itu memang memerlukan satu abang long lah. Abang long kan dulu abah dengan abang long Mael lah, nak kena ambil benda tu sekarang. Yalah, ini salah satu lagi adalah pihak kerajaan kena kepimpinan melalui teladan lah. Dia kena tukar dulu kereta kerajaan jadi kereta elektrik kan. So this is another thing yang I think is an important step lah yang kerajaan boleh ambil. It could be just symbolic, tapi sebenarnya that symbol ataupun gesture tu is very important to show to people that they are serious about it lah. Tapi kalau kerajaan dah commit pakai kereta elektrik, of course dia nak kena ada teknologi dan juga kepakaran untuk service, maintain dan sebagainya kan. So of course dia akan nampak macam lebih serius lah pasal benda tu. But of course then macam Firdaus Fuad cakap lah, dia baru lagi tukar kereta. Kalau siapa-siapa boleh ketuk pintu YB Azmin Ali, saya ikut belakang. Kita pergi jumpa. Mungkin dia mungkin suka untuk jadi product champion. Ya, kalau Yusof ada, saya tak berapa kenal dengan Menteri MITI kita sekarang. Kalau yang sebelum ni mungkin saya ada cara nak masuk, tapi yang ini saya tak kenal lah. Yang ni Azmin Ali saya tak berapa cekap sikit lah. So kalau ada yang boleh ni, tak ada masalah, saya sanggup ikut kan. Pakai suit sikit pergi masuk kan, sembang kan, mana tahu kan. Okay, alright. Kalau macam tu, saya ingat dah habis dah kita punya broadcast malam ni. Terima kasihlah kawan-kawan kerana duduk sampai habis. Macam biasa, tolong kita sikit tekan butang like dan share dengan kawan-kawan, dan ajak mereka mai. Besok ajak lebih ramai lagi datang. Kita live daripada Isnin sampai Jumaat mula pukul 10 malam. Sebab kalau lagi ramai lagi senang kita nak panggil tetamu-tetamu yang lebih hebat lah. Saya akan cuba akan dapatkan tetamu yang lebih hebat lepas ni. Dan minggu depan kita akan dapat seorang jurucakap daripada BMW Malaysia. Jadi boleh hantar kat saya soalan, siap-siap dah. Apa soalan-soalan yang you all nak tanya kepada BMW Malaysia, dan kita akan tanya minggu depan. Kita akan tengok tarikh apalah, tak pasti lagi hari apa, mungkin hari Rabu ke, Selasa ataupun Rabu minggu depan kita akan cuba dapatkan dah. Okey. Apapun tolong juga tekan butang subscribe dan butang loceng supaya dapat maklumat lah bila kita naik video-video baru. Pemandu Malaysia, pemandu yang berhemah, kita jumpa lagi insya-Allah.